Welcome to another deep dive today. We're going to be looking at something pretty cool. The material today is from rockingultra.com. They've got tons of articles for runners, whether you're just starting out or you're like a total ultramarathon pro. It's a really cool mix of actual training tips, but they also get into like the mental side of running, which I think is really interesting and probably really important, especially if you're trying to, push yourself to that next level. And by the way, the voices you're hearing today are AI. So we're basically giving you like the Cliff Notes version of their great articles, just to give you a taste. And we totally recommend heading over to rockingultra.com to check out the full articles. And they even have some books on Amazon by some of their authors if you want to like really dive in.
Yeah, rockingultra.com is seriously a goldmine of information. And today we're focusing on one of their most fascinating subjects. I'd say Ross Edgley. He's not just an athlete. He's like this adventurer who pushes the boundaries of human potential. He uses his body as a lab, basically, to explore what we can really do.
Yeah, he's got this background in sports science. So he brings a really unique perspective to these crazy challenges he does.
Yeah.
But I think what's really cool is he's not just chasing medals or breaking records.
Yeah.
It's more than that. He's driven by this curiosity to understand how resilient humans can be physically and mentally.
Exactly. He wants to know why we stop pushing ourselves. What are the barriers? What are the things that make us quit? And how can we break through them? And he does this through these mind-blowing feats of endurance. This is the guy who swam around Great Britain,
157 days?
battling tides and jellyfish and freezing cold water.
I can't even imagine 157 days. That's like swimming a marathon every other day for almost half a year. And that's just one thing he's done. He also rope climbed the height of Mount Everest.
In under 24 hours.
Can you imagine the grip strength, the willpower?
It's incredible. It really shows you what humans are capable of. But he doesn't just focus on strength. He also did this challenge where he dragged a 45-kilogram tree for a whole marathon distance. Talk about functional fitness.
Yeah, he's not messing around. He's really pushing the limits of what's possible. And what I think is so interesting is he's not just focusing on the physical. He's exploring that connection between mind and body, showing us that our potential is way bigger than we often believe. And that's where things get really interesting. Today, we're going to dive into some of his most epic challenges, starting with his insane swim down the Yukon River. So picture this, 3,000 kilometers of icy water, rapids, unforgiving wilderness. Edgley decides to swim 510 kilometers of it, nonstop, no sleep, no touching the support boat.
It sounds crazy,
Right.
right? But that's Edgley, and the challenges he faced on this swim were intense. I mean, the water temperature was between 6 and 10 degrees Celsius. Even with a wetsuit and extra body fat he was carrying, he experienced frostbite.
Wow, 6 degrees is going to be painful. On top of that, he was dealing with sleep deprivation. He swam for over 130 hours straight. What does that even do to your mind and body? Hallucinations, blurred reality, how do you keep going?
Well, that's where the mental game comes in. Edgley is all about planning and understanding how the body reacts to extreme stress. For the Yukon swim, he ate a crazy amount of food, like 20,000 calories a day.
20,000. Was he eating like 10 pizzas a day?
Seriously, though, how do
Yeah.
you even eat that much while you're swimming?
It is a super specific diet
Yeah.
to fuel his body for all that energy he was burning. He was also really focused on electrolytes and hydration, which are crucial in those conditions.
So it wasn't just about training his body. It was about the science of nutrition and how to keep his body performing under that kind of pressure. It's interesting, rockingultra.com talks a lot about that in their articles, that balance between pushing yourself, but also respecting your body's needs.
Totally. And we can't forget about the mental strategies he used, breathing techniques, rhythmic swimming patterns, just to stay focused and fight off that mental fatigue. Those techniques are something anyone can learn, even if you're not swimming in the Yukon. Exactly. What's so cool about Edgley is that he pushes himself to these extremes, but then he gives us these insights that we can all use, whether we're runners or athletes or just trying to be more resilient in our everyday lives.
Absolutely. Speaking of pushing limits, Edgley's swim around Great Britain is probably his most famous feat, 157 days to swim around the whole island, averaging 6 hours of swimming every single day.
6 hours a day
Yeah.
for 157 days. That's unbelievable. And it wasn't just the physical strain of the swimming. He had to deal with treacherous tides, jellyfish stings, close encounters with seals, even sharks.
Oh, yeah. He even had a really bad allergic reaction to a jellyfish sting at one point.
And he kept going.
That's insane. But what's really cool is that he didn't see this swim as a battle against the ocean. It was more like a collaboration, a way of learning to coexist with the power of nature.
I love that. That's a really beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah.
It shows that he respects the environment and understands our place in it.
Exactly. And it's something that rockingultra.com talks about a lot too, They're all about mindful training, listening to your body, finding that balance between pushing boundaries, but also respecting your limits. It's not about conquering nature. It's about working with it.
And that's a message that goes way beyond just running, would you say?
Totally. It's about resilience, adaptability, and finding harmony within ourselves and with the world around us. But before we go too deep into that, let's take a closer look at some of the specific challenges Edgley faced during his Great Britain swim and what we can learn from them, like battling those crazy
Oh,
tides.
yeah, I was reading about that on rockingultra.com. It's amazing how he had to time his swims to work with the tides
Mm,
instead of against them. It's like he was playing chess with the ocean.
exactly. It wasn't just about brute force, it was about understanding the environment and adapting his approach. It's a good lesson for all of us. We often try to force our way through challenges, but sometimes the smartest thing to do is to step back, observe, and find a way to work with the forces that are already there.
Yeah, it's like that Bruce Lee quote, be water, my friend. You got to be adaptable and flow with the challenges instead of just trying to fight them head on.
I love that analogy. And speaking of adapting, Edgley had to deal with a whole other set of challenges when it came to marine life. I mean, jellyfish stings, seals popping up out of nowhere, even the occasional shark sighting. That's going to mess with your head, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it really shows you how important mental resilience is. He knew those encounters were going to happen, so he prepared himself mentally to deal with them, to not let fear take over. And he even came up with strategies to minimize the risks, like swimming at certain times to avoid the jellyfish.
Smart. It's like he's combining physical preparation with mental toughness. It's not just about being tough. It's about being smart and resourceful. Exactly. And that's something rockingultra.com really gets into, the mental side of running. They have articles on visualization, mindfulness, even like self-talk strategies, all these things that can help runners push through those tough moments physically and mentally.
Yeah, they're saying it's not just about your legs and lungs, it's about what's going on up here, too.
Right. And that's what makes Edgley so fascinating. He takes that mental game to a whole other level. There's this crazy story on rockingultra.com about how during the Great Britain swim, his tongue started ulcerating from the salt water.
Ouch. That sounds awful.
Eh.
I can't even imagine trying to swim with a sore tongue, let alone for hours and hours.
It got so bad he could barely eat. Most people would quit right there, but not Edgley. He worked with his team to figure out how to manage the pain and adjust his diet. He even started blending his food so it was easier to swallow.
Wow, talk about dedication. He was not going to let anything stop him, no matter how painful or unexpected. And he did it all with a positive attitude and a sense of humor, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it shows you how strong he is mentally and his ability to see challenges as opportunities to grow. And that's something we can all learn from. Instead of getting bogged down by setbacks, how can we adapt, problem solve, keep moving forward?
It's like that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But with Edgley, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving in the face of adversity.
Exactly. And he doesn't keep all these lessons to himself. He shares them through his writing, his talks, his collaborations with platforms like rockingultra.com. He wants to empower other people to embrace challenges, to push their own boundaries, to discover their own resilience. Speaking of his work, we can't forget about his books. They're a great way to dive deeper into his philosophy and training methods.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah.
He's written a bunch of books. Each one explores different aspects of human performance and resilience. He's got The World's Fittest Book, which is basically a fitness encyclopedia, full of advice and insights from top athletes. And then there's The Art of Resilience, which uses his experiences from the Great Britain swim to teach you about mental toughness.
Yeah.
And it even draws inspiration from Stoic philosophy, which I thought was pretty cool.
And then there's Blueprint, which is all about rebuilding strength and resilience after setbacks, something we can all relate to, whether we're athletes or not. And of course, there's The World's Fittest Cookbook, all about the nutrition strategies he uses to fuel those crazy challenges.
It's like he's saying, look, I'm not superhuman, but here are the tools and techniques I use, and you can use them too.
Exactly. He makes these incredible achievements seem achievable. He breaks them down into steps that anyone can follow.
It's kind of like rockingultra.com. They do a great job of making running and endurance training accessible to everyone, no matter your experience level. They've got articles for beginners, seasoned runners, people interested in trail running, ultramarathons, everything.
And they even have a whole section on mental training, which fits perfectly with Edgley's philosophy. It's not just about hitting the pavement. It's about understanding how your mind and body work together and developing the mental toughness to keep going when things get hard. And that mental toughness is really on display in one of Edgley's most unique challenges, the Channel Swim with a Tree.
Okay, now that one sounds insane. Swimming the English Channel is hard enough, but dragging a tree with you? That's next level.
It sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
And it perfectly embodies Edgley's philosophy of functional resilience. He's not just interested in random feats of strength. He wants to know how we can develop strength and resilience that actually helps us in real life.
So the tree wasn't just a gimmick. It had a purpose.
Exactly. The tree weighed 45 kilograms, so it added a ton of resistance. Edgley had to work so much harder, be more efficient with his movements, and tap into this deeper level of mental and physical resilience.
It's like he's saying life is going to throw obstacles your way, sometimes really heavy ones. But you have the strength to carry those burdens and keep moving.
That's a powerful message, right? And it's not just about physical strength, it's about mental fortitude, that unwavering determination to keep going, even when it's really tough.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to what we were talking about earlier, Edgley's approach to those crazy tides during the Great Britain Swim. It's that same adaptability, that same refusal to give up, that allowed him to overcome the challenges of the Channel swim with a tree.
It's like he's taking that concept of functional resilience and applying it to everything. His training, his challenges, his whole mindset.
Exactly. And that's something rockingultra.com really emphasizes. Finding that balance between pushing your limits and respecting your body, between physical strength and mental fortitude. It's about embracing the challenge, the journey, and the lessons you learn along the way.
And it's about realizing that we're all capable of so much more than we think. Edgley's story is proof of. He's not some superhuman. He's a regular guy who's chosen to push himself beyond what most people believe is possible. And in doing so, he's inspiring others to do the same.
And that's why platforms like rockingultra.com are so important. They create a space for people to learn, to connect, to share stories, and to support each other on their own journeys of running and self-discovery. They're not just about information. They're about building a community of people who are passionate about pushing their limits and exploring what the human body and spirit can do.
And they do such a great job of it. Their articles are well-written, informative, and inspiring. They blend the science of running with personal stories and insights that make it relatable and engaging.
And they're always evolving and adding new content. So there's always something new to discover, whether you're a beginner or a seasoned runner.
It's like a one-stop shop for all things running. From training plans and nutrition advice to mental strategies and motivational stories. And they do it all with this sense of fun and community that makes you feel like you're part of something bigger.
Exactly. That's what makes them so special. They've created a platform that's both informative and inspiring, that takes running seriously, but also keeps things lighthearted.
That's a rare combo.
Yeah.
And it's what makes them so successful.
Yeah.
And speaking of successful, let's go back to Edgley for a second and his amazing ability to turn setbacks into opportunities for growth. Remember that story about his tongue ulcerating during the Great Britain Swim?
Oh, yeah. That's a perfect example of his resilience and adaptability. Most people would have given up. But Edgley found a way to adapt, to manage the pain, to keep moving forward.
And it wasn't just physical adaptation. It was mental toughness, too. He refused to let that setback break him. He reframed the situation, found humor in the absurdity of it all, and kept his focus on the bigger picture.
That's such a good lesson for all of us. Life is going to throw curveballs. There will be setbacks, obstacles, moments when we want to quit. But it's in those moments that our true character comes out.
It's about digging deep, finding that inner strength, and not letting challenges define us. It's about embracing the whole journey, the good, the bad, the ugly, and finding a way to keep moving forward one step at a time. It's amazing how Edgley just keeps pushing the limits of what we think is humanly possible.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that he doesn't do it just through brute force.
It's not just about gritting your teeth and pushing through. There's a real science to his approach.
Exactly. He combines this meticulous planning with deep scientific knowledge and almost like an intuition about his own body and mind. Remember when we were talking about his 20,000 calorie intake during that Yukon River swim?
Oh, yeah. That was mind-blowing. I still can't imagine how he ate that much while he was swimming.
Well, it shows you just how much energy he was burning. But it wasn't just about eating a ton of food. Edgley worked with nutritionists to come up with a diet that would fuel his body in the best way possible, making sure he was getting the right balance of macronutrients, electrolytes, hydration, all that stuff.
So it was a very specific approach, tailored to the exact demands of the challenge. It wasn't just about eating a lot, it was about eating smart.
Exactly. And this attention to detail, this understanding of the science behind performance, that's what sets Edgley apart. He doesn't just rely on willpower. He uses knowledge and strategy to really get the most out of his body.
And that's something rockingultra.com talks about a lot too.
Yeah.
Right? They're always emphasizing the importance of training smart, not just training hard.
Absolutely. They're all about a holistic approach to running, considering not just the physical training, but also nutrition recovery, mental toughness.
It's like they're saying, running is a journey of self-discovery. It's a process of learning and adapting, not just a test of how much you can endure physically.
Right. And it's in this process of learning and adapting that we often uncover our true potential. Edgley's story is a perfect example of that. He's constantly pushing himself beyond his comfort zone, exploring new limits, finding ways to overcome obstacles.
So what's the takeaway for the rest of us?
Hmm.
For those of us who aren't planning on swimming around Great Britain or dragging trees across the English Channel?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we're all capable of so much more than we think. Edgley shows us that limitations are often something we create for ourselves.
We set these boundaries based on what we think we can do, but those boundaries might not even be real.
Exactly. We tell ourselves things like, I could never do that, or that's way too hard for me. But maybe those are just stories we're telling ourselves, not actual limits.
We're holding ourselves back without even realizing it.
Right. And Edgley challenges us to question those stories, to push beyond those limits that we've set for ourselves, and discover what we're truly capable of. He shows us that with the right mindset, the right preparation, and the right support, we can achieve incredible things.
It's about shifting our perspective. Instead of focusing on how hard something is, what if we focused on the possibility, on the growth that comes from pushing ourselves beyond what we thought we can do?
Exactly. And it's not just about achieving some external goal. It's about the way we change on the inside along the way. It's about building resilience, mental fortitude, a deeper understanding of ourselves and what we can do.
And that's a journey worth taking, even if it doesn't involve swimming with sharks or dragging trees. It's about finding that fire inside ourselves, that drive to push our limits, to explore our potential, to become the best versions of ourselves.
And who knows, maybe someday we'll be sharing our own stories about overcoming challenges and achieving things that seem impossible. Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to mention one of Edgley's most famous quotes.
Oh yeah, the one about quitting.
Yeah, he said, "I'm not special. I've just decided not to quit."
Such a powerful statement. So simple, but so true. It really highlights how important perseverance is. Refusing to give up on your goals even when things get tough.
It reminds us that we all have that power within us, that ability to keep going when things get hard. We just have to tap into it.
And sometimes all it takes is a little inspiration, a story like Edgley's, to remind us that we can do more than we think. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's remember that we're not just talking about some articles from rockingultra.com. We're connecting with a whole community of people who believe in the power of running and pushing limits.
If you're feeling inspired to learn more about Edgley, check out his books. You can find them on Amazon. And of course, head over to rockingultra.com for the full articles and even more incredible stories of human potential. It's an amazing resource for runners of all levels.
So keep running, keep exploring, and keep pushing your limits. You might be surprised at what you discover about yourself along the way.
Until next time, happy running.